A 4th of July celebration turns deadly for one East Texas family. Why firefighters had a hard time getting that fire under control. A woman drives into a giant sinkhole and gets trapped inside of her car. She made it out alive and is now talking about her frightening experience.
And things are heating up pretty rapidly outside. I'll give you details on the forecast where you live, not only for today, but the entire weekend. Coming up, East Texas News Midday starts right now.
Now in high definition, caring, committed, proud of East Texas. This is East Texas News Midday, your East Texas news leader.
Good morning and thank you for joining us for East Texas News Midday. I'm Shaley Sanders. Jennifer Hines has the day off. There is a slight chance of a pop-up storm or two this afternoon, so let's get right over to meteorologist Grant Dade in the Storm Tracker Weather Center. Grant, again, this is just a slight chance, but if a storm does pop up, what should we expect? Well,
just like yesterday, the atmosphere is set up that if a storm can develop, lots of lightning out there, the possibility of some heavier downpours, and maybe some pea-sized hail. But thankfully, most areas probably just not going to see anything in the way of thunderstorm activity today. Let's take a look at Storm Tracker Live Doppler Network. You see the temperatures already in the mid to upper 80s out there. The one difference we have with today's system from yesterday with all the storms we saw, I'm going to go ahead and pan out just a bit. And I want to show you, yesterday we had a disturbance that was moving through the parts of East Texas, kind of right here where I have this little white line, and that added to the thunderstorm development across East Texas. Today's disturbance is moving across Oklahoma right now, so it's a lot further north. So the chances of those storms are much less today. But then again, we still have a very small chance, especially along the I-30 corridor, of seeing an afternoon storm. More details come up shortly.
Fireworks may be to blame for a death in an overnight celebration. One man is dead and his wife injured after a fire broke out at a home in the 100 block of Douglas Road in Texarkana, Texas. Now, this is video just in from the scene of that 4th of July celebration. Firefighters arrived at the home just after midnight. Crews apparently had to wait to go inside the house because of the intensity of the fire and because ammunition was going off inside.
It was extremely hot in there. We could see fire rolling, what we could of the fire, kind of rolling through the ceiling. There was huge black smoke just billowing throughout the room, and very hot.
We're working to gather more information about the victims, and we will have updates for you as they become available. An accident at a 4th of July celebration in Southern California injured more than 24 people after a batch of fireworks prematurely detonated into the crowd. Nearly 10,000 people gathered to celebrate America's birthday in the Simi Valley that's outside of Los Angeles. ABC News' Karen Travers has the details.
It was a festive celebration for 4th of July, but just 2 minutes into the show, chaos. Fireworks exploding horizontally, low to the ground, not into the air.
There were things going into the crowd, they were shooting up in the air, smoke started billowing everywhere, panic started to settle in.
The blast sent terrified people frantically running for cover as debris flew by.
A block of wood about this big came shooting down and it hit the side of my leg.
We had bits and pieces of fireworks coming at us. A big round cylinder block hit the person sitting next to me.
Authorities said they believe the wood platform holding the live explosives fell over, sending the fireworks into the crowd. Spectators were sitting just a couple hundred feet away from the launch site.
What I remember is when I saw them lights go off and then things shoot, and within seconds, the fireworks are right in our face. That's really what it was.
Emergency medical crews quickly set up a triage at the scene. 28 people were injured, some with pieces of fireworks stuck in their bodies like shrapnel. 4 people remain in serious condition, but officials said their injuries were not life-threatening. Law enforcement officials have launched an investigation, but there's one big challenge.
We've got to figure out the safe way now to get in there, disarm what is potentially dangerous without getting in the way of the things we need to look at.
Karen Travers, ABC News, Washington.
One witness said it felt like a chain reaction once the unexpected explosions began. Officials tell us that despite the panic and chaos, the large crowd left in an orderly fashion. Egyptian troops have opened fire on supporters of the ousted President Mohamed Morsi. There are reports that one person has been killed and several people have been wounded. An Associated Press photographer at the scene says the Republic Guard forces opened fire when protesters approached a barbed wire barrier around the facility and hung a picture of Morsi on it. Morsi was ousted Wednesday night by the military, which also suspended the Islamist drafted constitution. South Africa's government says Nelson Mandela remains in a critical but stable condition, and he denies that he's in any sort of vegetative state. Today, a close friend of Mandela said he visited him on Monday. He said Mandela was conscious and responsive. He said Mandela's wife told him there were doctors that said there were no sign of general organ collapse and that they did not recommend turning off life support. Airlines in the United States have canceled flights to and from Mexico City after ash, steam, and gas erupted from a large volcano. The eruption started a couple of days ago. The ash has not reached Mexico City International Airport yet, but according to officials, that's the case. But Delta American Airlines and Alaska Airlines canceled a dozen flights that had to be scheduled to leave the airport. The volcano is about 50 miles from Mexico City's airport. Startling testimony today about how long Trayvon Martin suffered before he died from a gunshot wound. And Martin's mother and brother took the stand today. ABC's Tamon Bradley has the latest testimony in the George Zimmerman murder trial.
It was a dramatic moment. Trayvon Martin's mother, Sabrina Fulton, on the stand facing George Zimmerman, telling the jurors that the screaming heard on a 911 call the night of the shooting came from her 17-year-old son.
Ma'am, that screaming or yelling, do you recognize that?
Yes.
And who do you recognize that to be, ma'am?
Trayvon Benjamin Martin.
Zimmerman's defense attorney, Mark O'Mara, carefully cross-examined Fulton, asking if perhaps her son was responsible for what happened.
You certainly hope, as a mom, that your son, Trayvon Martin, would not have done anything that would have led to his own death, correct?
What I hope for is that this would have never happened and he would still be here.
Absolutely.
That's my hope.
Next, the prosecution called 22-year-old Javaris Fulton, Martin's brother. He also identified the screaming voice as that of Trayvon Martin.
I heard him yell, but not like that.
O'Mara pointed out that Javaris initially had doubts about whether the voice on the tape was his brother's.
You said that, honestly, really haven't listened to it. I've heard it. I would think it was my brother, but I'm not completely positive. Correct?
Mm-hmm.
Identifying the 911 screams could help determine who the aggressor was during Zimmerman's deadly encounter with Martin. The former neighborhood watchman says he shot Martin after the teen beat him up and threatened his life.
Tamon Bradley, ABC News, New York.
The doctor who performed Martin's autopsy testified today that the teen lived and suffered for 1 to 10 minutes after Zimmerman shot him through the heart. An Ohio woman whose car fell into a giant sinkhole on a Toledo road is talking about her frightening experience. Pamela Knox was driving home Wednesday afternoon when the ground started shaking. Knox said the next thing she knew, her Chevy Malibu plunged into a massive hole, leaving her trapped inside.
You know, I didn't know what was happening. I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm actually falling. You know, is this really happening to me? And as I was falling like that, you know, I just started calling out on the name of Jesus, you know, and I just kept saying, Jesus, 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 you know, over and over again, because I didn't know.
Firefighters quickly responded to the distress calls from other motorists. They put a ladder down the hole and helped Knox out before more debris fell on her car. Pope John Paul II will be named a saint. Vatican officials made the announcement this morning. Pope Francis signed a decree allowing for the canonization of the beloved Pope. Pope John XXIII, who presided over the Church's historic Second Vatican Council in the 1960s, will also be named a saint. No date has been announced for the canonization ceremonies. Well, did you find yourself overeating at your own Independence Day barbecue? Turns out you may have picked that habit up when you were a child. We'll explain a little later in our Met Team report.
And it's heating up out there. Let's take a live look, courtesy of our Grant and Flannery WeatherNet site. 87 right now in Huntington, and it feels like 90. Your weekend forecast is next.
The Storm Tracker Live Doppler Network, the most accurate weather where you live.
Well, we hit 92 yesterday in Tyler for the 4th. slightly above that average high of 91, but 68 this morning. Again, we're still seeing lows that are slightly below average. Notice the average low is really beginning to climb up. Why does that happen? Well, we normally see a lot of moisture in the atmosphere this time of the year, and that is when we see a significant rise in those morning lows because temperatures can't drop off at night when the atmosphere is moist. 93 the high yesterday in Longview, right where we should be. 64 this morning. Again, that's well below average. And 65 this morning in Lufkin after a high yesterday of 93. Again, all in all, average highs slightly above average and morning lows below average because the air mass has been relatively dry. Now, I showed you that disturbance we were watching. You kind of make out the clouds right here. A couple of showers trying to develop near Oklahoma City. But let's zoom back in to East Texas and notice that it is fairly quiet out there. And something else that I've noticed, about 15,000 feet in the atmosphere, I'm looking at the temperatures all over the East Texas, and there's a layer of very warm air for that level of the atmosphere. If that air was down here, it would feel fantastic. But for up at 15,000 feet, it's a little too warm, or a little too warm for thunderstorm development today. So there's a couple of things that are going against thunderstorms from developing this afternoon. One, the disturbance being displaced so far to the north, and then two, that layer of warm air aloft. Temperatures right now, 87 in Mount Pleasant, 86 Quitman, 86 in Wills Point. Central Counties, 86 in Tyler, 87 now Longview, 88 in Henderson. Flying down to deep East Texas, 86 in Nacogdoches, 87 Lufkin, and 87 in Livingston. So we're heating up. Looking at the satellite, we had an area of low pressure in the mid-levels of the atmosphere that was over the north-central part of Texas yesterday. That has now drifted back to Missouri, and these little spokes of energy rotate around this, and that's why our next one is so much further north than what we saw yesterday. It still could be close enough to spark an isolated thunder shower, especially along the I-30 corridor. But for most of us, it looks like precision cast keeping us dry now. And with that layer of warm air at 15,000 feet, that's going to help as well. But if temperatures can reach 95, 96 degrees in a few areas, we will still see a couple of isolated storms. And guess where we're forecasting? 94 to 95. Even a 96 there in Wills Point for our afternoon high today. So that should be warm enough to spark an isolated shower. Now, we're still going to drop to below normal levels tomorrow morning, but more upper 60s out there tomorrow morning, maybe an isolated 70-degree mark. Central Counties, 95 in Longview, 95 Tyler, 96 in Athens. Again, a very small chance of that pop-up storm. As we wake up tomorrow morning, temperatures in the upper 60s to near 70. And in deep East Texas, 95 Nacogdoches and Lufkin, 95 in Groveton. Here as well, slim chance of a pop-up storm. We'll see temperatures in the upper 60s as you wake up tomorrow morning. Hot and dry for most of us through the weekend, although there will be that isolated chance of a shower with temperatures in the mid-90s through Sunday. A little better chance of thunderstorms as we head towards Monday, as we're still watching the possibility of a disturbance in the Gulf of Mexico headed our way. That'd be great news because we could use some rain.
Yeah, and fortunately after 4th of July.
Yeah, and it looks like for most of us, the weekend festivities are going to be underway just fine.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Grant. Well, coming up next on East Texas News Midday, kids who are overweight in kindergarten are more than 5 times as likely to be obese by the time they enter 8th grade as classmates of normal weight. More on this new study coming up.
Cooking Up a Storm is sponsored by Diamond Jack's Casino and Resort. When you're here, you're in luck.
Well, happy July 4th week, everyone. We hope you're enjoying a wonderful time. We know that celebrations are going on this coming weekend as well as last weekend. It seems like we have a whole week of celebrating. I love that because 4th of July is about fun, family, and friends. And I have a quick idea for you today for a 4th of July patriotic themed cake that you could actually make Veterans Day, Memorial Day, whenever you wanted to. And it's very simple. We're going to use some fresh produce because I put blueberries inside this cake. It's very easy to do. You can, if you want, you could use a box cake mix and maybe embellish it with some pudding mix, that kind of thing. You can find those recipes easily. Or you can check online. I'll have a pound cake recipe that you can use and put it in a 13 by 9 pan. And what I've done is I've coated some blueberries in flour and I added it to my cake batter and I baked it normally. It baked a little longer because of the moisture of the berries, but just test it with your toothpick as always. So this is infused with blueberries. Then what I suggest, if you really want to make this a moist, kind of like a strawberry shortcake taste, just take a fork and poke some holes in your already moist cake and you can drizzle a little berry juice around. This is the strawberry juice that came off of my berries when I sliced them and added a little sugar. But just to give that strawberry flavor also inside the cake, wasn't that delicious? I mean, I love strawberry shortcake. It's the classic summertime dessert, but this is a little different twist on it. So juice, if you want to, you can do that. And then I have whipped some heavy cream. Now please, I know, Cool Whip, oh, I can't say the name, but you know that pre-prepared whipped topping stuff in a jar, in a container, is a lot less expensive than maybe making your own homemade whipped cream. But it's easy, you guys, to make this with your blender. So all you have to do is put a little powdered sugar in and whip it with a cold mixer, and you know, it's easy. So I'll tell you how to do that on kltv.com and kterry.com as well. So you can do whatever pattern you like and then take your whipped cream and use it as if it were the frosting. It's kind of like strawberry shortcake, like I said. And I won't do the sides and be all perfect for you guys right now. You know what it'll look like, but you'll want to coat your sides, smooth everything out, and then you can just make your pattern. I've done a flag pattern before. You can do just stripes with berries. So you can just take some strawberries and some blueberries and just top. These aren't even coated with sugar or anything, they're just fresh berries. So just go along, put your berries on your cake, make it what you want to make it for the patriotic theme. Now, if you don't like doing cake, if you want to eat a little healthier, how about taking a mason jar, and then you could layer yogurt and berries in a mason jar, do layers, and serve those on your table for the 4th. That'd be fun too. But whatever you do, just have a great, safe 4th of July, and, you know, have fun. That's what we want on this holiday, to celebrate our freedom that we're so thankful for here in East Texas. You guys have a wonderful day, and look at this beautiful cake. See if you can make one this weekend. I think you'll enjoy it.
Thank you so much, Mom and Steph, for that. You can find this recipe on kltv.com, ktrread.com, and on KLTV7's Pinterest page. Just go to our websites and click on the In the Kitchen icon or the Pinterest icon at the home page. Then click on the In the Kitchen board. You can also send us a self-addressed stamped envelope to In the Kitchen, 105 West Ferguson Street, Tyler, Texas 75702. We'll be right back. For many, it's a long holiday weekend, and you might need an air-conditioned way to entertain the family. How about a movie? Andrew Spencer has a preview of this week's new releases in Now Showing.
From the team that brought Pirates of the Caribbean to the big screen comes The Lone Ranger. Johnny Depp stars in Disney's newest flick. He plays the Native American warrior Tonto on a mission to find the men who ruined his tribe. Tonto crosses paths with an aspiring lawyer, and together they will take on the bad guys of the frontier. And one of them will become the infamous Lone Ranger.
It was a ranger riding a white horse. Got some lunatic Indian with him. They coming for you.
The Lone Ranger is rated PG-13. On the animated side, the crew from Despicable Me is back in a sequel. This time around, Gru is settling into fatherhood when he is recruited by the Anti-Villain League to help defeat a new kind of supervillain. Can he return to the dark side to fight for all that's good, or will Gru be lured back into his villainous ways?
You know, you really should announce your weapons after you fire them. For example, lipstick taser!
Steve Carell, Kristen Wiig, and Benjamin Bratt are just a few of the familiar voices you might recognize in the movie. Despicable Me 2 is rated PG. For Now Showing, I'm Andrew Spencer.
Thanks for watching. We'll see you again here at News at 4. Have a good afternoon.